Welcome everybody to the Shebeen. How's it going? Welcome to our Friday night live stream. I'm Barry Chandler. There was two, now there's three. I'm here with Rick Green and Lauren McMullen. Rick is the new addition. Rick, how are you?
I'm great.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We didn't ask you to come. You just appeared on the doorstep, and we had no choice. You're very welcome. We have a great night ahead of us tonight, talking about expanding your whiskey knowledge, and we have somebody with us who I've known for a long time, long before I ever knew about whiskey. I've known Rick going back many years, and Rick has been on a whiskey journey over the past few years, in no small part thanks to this community. And we're going to talk about that and hear Rick's journey tonight. I'm going to share with you a ton of ways, right, Lauren, that we're going to talk about how to get into whiskey more tonight.
Absolutely. Ways to get more involved in your local community, in an online community, improve your knowledge through courses and Facebook groups and all the like. So get yourself a pour. We'd love to know what's in your glasses tonight, folks, as always. I am drinking JJ Corey, the Battalion tonight. Barry, Rick, what is in your glasses?
What have you got, Rick?
Got a little Middleton Very Rare, 22.
Lovely.
I'm in the belly of the beast, so I thought I'd start with something really nice.
I told Rick, go find something that's open, anything at all that's open. He's like, where's the tallest, the top shelf, the topmost shelf in any room?
The back of my rental car is full of bottles. While Barry's getting ready, I was just putting bottles in the car.
Lots of empties behind us now today. I'm drinking a Method of Madness Virgin Gariana Oak. And I'm doing that because it's one of our whiskeys in our upcoming whiskey tasting that we've just teased for March. We were really excited to have a whiskey tasting for Stories and Sips with a tasting kit with 3 Method of Madness whiskeys that'll be available to our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club members. So I'm tasting a drop of that tonight, having a bit of crack with it. You tasted it last night for the first time.
I did. Fantastic.
You liked it?
You liked
this
it,
house
Rick?
is full of Method of Madness right now, actually. It's fantastic.
all the tasting kits getting prepared.
They're all ready to go. Lauren, is there a reason why JJ Corey is on deck with you tonight?
Absolutely, because in 4 weeks' time, our Whiskey Bus Wild West adventure will have kicked off. And we will, of course, be with Louise McGuan, founder of JJ Corey, on St. Patrick's Day, no less, for an incredible day on her family farm. And we'll be running around her bonded warehouse, no doubt, tormenting her to open casks left, right, and centre. But she has an incredible day lined up for us. And, of course, we finish it off with a St. Patrick's Day parade as well. So I thought I would get into the spirit. We're at 4 weeks out, which is unbelievable how quickly it's all come around. And that is why I picked it for this evening.
And if you want to find out more about our upcoming trip around the west coast of Ireland, you can visit irishwhiskeyexperiences.com and see the itinerary we've got planned for you all. It's going to be a great time. It'll be the first whiskey bus that Rick will have missed.
I know we did try to bend your arm, but schedules just didn't really align, did they?
Responsibilities.
Yeah, we know that you can't squeeze it all in. You can't do it all. That's all right too. So tonight we wanted to dive into something that has come up a few times in conversations, which is the journey that we go on in the world of whiskey, because for some reason we attract we connect ourselves to whiskey in ways we don't connect to Coca-Cola or vodka or other beverages. And for some reason, whiskey is interesting to us. And so there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down and paths to explore and people to meet and ways to advance your knowledge and get deeper into this community that we've all found our way into. So tonight we're going to share with you probably a dozen different ways to get deeper into the world of Irish whiskey. Many of those ways are methods that we've ourselves deployed to increase our own knowledge, and we still do every single day. So we'll share with you our journey through whiskey, right?
Absolutely. And you're right when you say that there is just something about whiskey that really gets people. I think when they begin their journey, that's them for life. There's no getting out of it. There's no real loss of interest along the way. And I think that's partly due to the incredible people that you meet along the way. I know, Rick, you've heard this before. Myself and Barry always say that if you strip all the whiskey away, you would still want to be in the community of people that you've met, whether it be fellow whiskey drinkers, master blenders, distillers, whoever it might be. The stories that go with it, the history that goes with it, there's just something so magical about it. So when you start your journey, good luck to you. You're never getting out.
Gotcha.
So I thought we'd start tonight by, we're lucky enough to have Rick here, who's been on a whiskey journey, who's not in the whiskey community himself or not in the whiskey world. professionally, and I thought it would be a chance for us to kind of hear your journey, and maybe that'll inspire others on what they can do. And I think it's always fascinating to hear how people happened upon where they are today, the slippery slope maybe they found themselves on at various points, the whiskeys they found, the people they met. That's always a good story.
Well, it'll surprise no one that Barry made me do it, right?
And that's it. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
It was a great night. Thank you, Rick.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
I'm very good at spending other people's money, I've discovered. I find it much easier than spending my own. So it's not tough to get people into whiskey. Just keep pointing at things.
Right.
There's a shiny one. There's a shiny one.
Exactly.
There's a shiny one.
That's exactly right.
So I think Lauren is all teed up to tease out of Rick some answers to some questions to help us understand his journey. But as we go through tonight, I'd be curious to get feedback from you all, whether you're joining us here live or you're watching this in a replay. Share with us your journey, or things that were of interest to you, or things that maybe connected you more, or a person that introduced you to a whiskey, or a place, or a trip. And that's always fascinating for us, because this is quite an emotive journey we're all on. For some reason, we're connecting more deeply than just at a first level. So it's always good to know who's done something similar, or, oh, that's interesting how he happened upon X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. Everyone's journey is so unique as well. And Rick, many of the people in the comments tonight who are joining us, and obviously myself and Barry, have come to know you very well through our online communities, through Irish Whiskey Experiences, Stories and Sips, and you're such a great supporter of both of our communities, which is incredible, and it's lovely to see that support and really feel it. So I guess the best place to begin is the beginning. So can you remember what was your first whiskey pour, if you can remember, or your first tasting? Your first Irish tasting?
All youthful experiments with whiskey aside, like for real as an adult, when Barry started sort of figuring out how to fundraise, I think was the first vehicle with his tastings. I happened to be in the mix. We happened to be working together on something totally not in the industry or whiskey related. So I was beneficial to be around and be able to take part in some of those early tastings. And if I were honest, I would say I didn't take to the whiskey right away. There were things that I liked better than other things, but I didn't take to the whiskey right away.
Get out.
But now I'm all in. Lorna, explain how you can't get out. But I did take immediately to the stories, the sips, right? Shameless plug.
Plug.
I connected to the stories immediately. I connected to the people immediately. Even Barry, and the history of where it came from, and I know we're going to talk about it, but the as I took further steps, the community had me. Once I started having experiences with the community, honestly, just like every other interest I have, I like bikes, I like hiking, I like mountains. It's those communities that sort of pulled me in and grabbed me and kept me. And I'll walk on a trail, or I'll ride a bike on a trail, or I'll talk to somebody about a trail, or I'll take pictures of a trail. It's the thing, the community, and the things that surround it that hold me in. And I think this community is the same way.
But did you answer what was your first pour?
The first thing I remember going, and it was after a couple of tastings. I think it was maybe my third tasting, and it was at a pub in Ohio.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't connect with some of the things that we tasted, but then, like he often does, Willy Wonka here went in the back room and got a Redbreast all sherry, and said, "Hey, I have a little bit of something special for you guys to try." And that was like, oh, this can be. I mean, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it. What I knew was the way he explained it and the way he talked about it, and then the, I don't know, 18 people at the table talked about it, was of great interest. And so it sort of started connecting that there's you can go deeper here, you can connect to parts of this that aren't just having a whiskey.
Yeah, you said something really interesting there, Rick, that you didn't immediately connect with the whiskey, but you did with the stories. And I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago, where we said that it's always the environment that you're in that you remember more than the whiskey sometimes. Like, you remember the exact person you shared a certain whiskey with, or the first time you went into a really cool Irish whiskey bar. It's the full package that makes the experience of drinking the whiskey, as opposed to just the whiskey. So it's quite interesting that was kind of similar for you as well.
Absolutely. And I would say, as my journey has gone on, I've certainly got a better understanding of what's out there, a better understanding of what I enjoy. I just saw my sister in the comments there said Rick made me do it. So
Amy.
hashtag.
You did. Amy joined us, and I'm so glad she did, on the Whiskey Bus in August, and we converted someone who wasn't really a big whiskey drinker into someone who now likes whiskey. So
I've had 10 conversations with her about it since, and I think it's relevant to what you're talking about. I certainly enjoyed being in Ireland with her. I certainly enjoyed all the crazy, amazing places that we got to go on the bus. Sitting in a barley field, drinking, having a pour with my sister was super special. To be honest, we could have been having food, or we could have been, reading books to each other. It still would have been special because it was her. Exactly. But to be sipping stuff that, was grains in those fields just before we were there is pretty cool. And you don't forget that sort of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of connective tissue to this community. Whiskey's part of it for sure. But there's a lot of connective tissue that's there with or without it.
Yeah. And can you remember, Rick, so you say you kind of didn't immediately connect with the whiskey, it was more of a kind of maybe a slow burner or a journey. Can you remember the shift between you maybe drinking the occasional whiskey and enjoying it versus actually starting to collect it and get serious about the bottles and the brands that you liked and you bought and you invested in?
Yes. I think most people who get involved in a community of any kind are kind of nerdy about the community itself. And I went over to an off license today to get a couple of bottles of Gallyhead from Clonakilty that you can't get in the US to take back because I sat in the barley fields at Clonakilty. I like that. I like knowing,
Call the distillery, Lauren. Tell them it's converting. Call the distillery.
I like knowing that I've been there. I like seeing names on bottles of people I've met. I like, going into places where things are made. When I was a teenager, I got to go to a car factory and see cars be made. And I eventually bought one and drove it because
I can't drink then.
I'm sorry. I paid attention to another community. I apologize. But yeah, it's the, I think it's the, to answer your question, I think it's the understanding of where it came from, what it is, the people who made it, the people who enjoy it, and then sort of understanding what you enjoy about it. And again, I've gone through that same thing with my running communities or my biking communities. Once I started, I sort of started, to get what I like about it and what keeps me coming back to it.
It starts to resonate with you. Yeah, Kevin's made a great point there. The connective tissue doesn't always exist in some communities. It's so true. Yeah. Like, I genuinely don't think you could name another spirit category that has the community that a whiskey community does.
And I also think it's about the community, that the group, even within the community we've all built around Irish Whiskey Fans of America, Irish Whiskey Auctions, Irish Whiskey Experiences, Irish Stories and Sips. Like, we're all connected, and I think there's a collective interest in there's an ethos and maybe a set of values that are shared, that we want to create a community that is welcoming and educational / entertaining, but never dismissive or maybe critical of somebody's choice. And I think that's important too. And I think people I think like that within a community as well, that they feel welcomed.
Sure. And I think you have to, I think you have to participate in it too. I think if you're, you know, if you're interested, you have to participate in it, whether that means, participating in events like this, or, taking the next step and going to the place or meeting the people in person. I live in Colorado, and there's you can swing a cat and hit somebody who will talk to you about craft beer. And it's not my thing, but I'm not critical of it. I don't, people have their thing.
It's no whiskey,
obviously. But I've never heard stories of the types of experiences we've had, or the kind of community connectiveness that we have in those communities. And I think everybody in Colorado has their own craft beer brand.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. It's it is like Kevin's point there about participation is easier when one feels accepted.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there are just very nice people in the world of Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
And we all tend to gravitate towards people who we feel safe and comfortable with, and that we can share our interests with, which is nice.
Exactly. I think, the openness and the welcomeness of the community, and I think the want for other people to learn has lent itself to the creation of so many whiskey communities, and obviously our business, Irish Whiskey Experiences, Stories and Sips, and so on and so forth. It lends itself to that community feel, which is lovely.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick, when you got in, when whiskey had you in a chokehold and you realized you couldn't get out, and when you started to get that little taste of it, like as you said, the stories and the people started to really resonate with you. How did you expand your knowledge? What was your way of thinking, okay, I want to learn a little bit more about this, I went here? How did you go about it?
Well, honestly, I sound like a commercial now, but I mean, I was along the journey as, the Facebook group was coming to life and Stories and Sips were coming to life.
There's a Stories and Sips sticker.
I wonder what you were doing with the stickers.
Perfect.
I'm playing with a roll of stickers here, trying to get one off.
Or write my name on the blackboard next. No, I just a timing thing. I happened to have access again before, between the Facebook group being formed and great people coming to it, and there was always people there that would answer a question and sort of not judge. Like you said, there was always somebody who knew something more than me. And if for some reason I knew the answer to something, I had no hesitation of sharing, or if I had a knowledge of something, no hesitation of sharing. And then when the club came about, we had some conversations even before the club came about that. I was sort of anticipating and looking forward to it because everybody I'd met, there's my sister saying that same thing I'm getting ready to say, everybody I had met had been so nice and so welcoming and so willing to share, and didn't care that I said, I don't love this, but I love this thing. Where should I go next? What should I try? And in some cases, to be honest, and this happens still every once in a while, I don't really know what I like about a particular whiskey. I just know I like it. And then the more I talk to someone about it, I figure it out. They're like, oh, because of this or that, or, whatever. And I figure it out. So it's just it's just like a big, hive of knowledge and niceness.
It's very much a continuous journey. I always say, like, if you think, and this doesn't just apply to whiskey, it's kind of in any scenario in life, if you feel like you've learned absolutely everything you could ever know about something, it's probably time you move on, and I feel like you should never reach that point. There should always be an element of, I'm still learning, I'm still enjoying learning, and you meet different people and they tell you something different. And it really is a journey that doesn't really end, in fairness. Which is brilliant.
So happy.
Exactly. And you kind of already mentioned this, Rick, but really, when in your kind of whiskey journey, even at the beginning or more recently, what has been your biggest win from being within a whiskey community?
Biggest win?
Yeah, from being within a community, like finding yourself in this world.
Like a takeaway or some.
Yeah.
I sounds like I'm beating a dead horse here,
You're
but
looking for another sticker?
I don't know on that rule.
Every time you mention stories, is it sticker.
Covered.
I'm repeating myself, but met so many amazing people around the country, outside the country I live in. Again, it's nerdy, but I went on a hike today, like an hour from here, and I'm driving past signs of places I've been, towns I've been, or where there are distilleries that I've been, and I feel connected to it. I feel it's not that I know tons about it, but I feel connected to it, and I want to support those nice people I met there. I want to partake in the things I like there. I want to learn more about the things I don't know from there. So I think the overall win is like I have a bunch of new friends that we have cool things to connect over. A few weeks ago, I was in Florida for an unfortunate reason, actually. Called somebody in the club and say, hey, what's going on? And they're like, come, we're going to have some sips where you're going to spend the night. That's that. I won't call them out so everybody doesn't go try to spend the night with them, but they're super nice members of the club. So you've gained, yeah, indeed. You've gained, new friends who have common interests, and that's the big win.
Yeah. Again, the community.
When I'm curious, like with the people you've met, like it, because I know I found it, the people in the world of whiskey, we all come from different backgrounds. And I say the world of whiskey, the people who enjoy drinking a drop of brown water, we're the people of whiskey, right? Whether we work in it or we drink it or consume it, we talk about it, we just buy it. So many different backgrounds that are absolutely irrelevant to the hanging out, whether it's cultural, political, ethnicity, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all connected somehow over whiskey. And isn't it funny that I never find myself in any other conversations with people like whiskey except about whiskey?
Yeah.
It's just, you just want to talk about it.
And again, I'm repeating myself, but I ride bikes a lot and I walk on trails a lot, and none of the people I do that with ever say, ask me about politics or we talk about loving to be out here, loving to do this. And I think this community is the same way. It's like you're discovering things together, you're learning things together, you're bonding over things. But I do think you have to participate to get that back out of it. I don't remember who said it, but someone said, it's easier to participate when you feel welcome. And I think that's all the doors in this community have always felt open. And because of this, another sticker.
You're going to get a sticker for that. This is you're going to get a sticker on top of a sticker.
I've, because of this club, I've met some of the like rock stars of this world, and they don't care where I'm at on my journey. They care that I'm there. I was walking around Middleton for a little while today, and there was 0 people there. It was very weird, actually. It was late in the day. It was kind of a little misty, but there was no people there. And as I was walking out, 2 employees who look like executives, they're like, hey, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Is there any questions we can answer or whatever? And I was the only one there. Just very cool. It's a great community. Yeah.
You're right. And Barry kind of briefly mentioned this within the whiskey world, that, you might have different knowledge levels. Say you're at a whiskey festival in Dublin and you've got the masters, you've got the brand ambassadors, you've got the whiskey drinkers. Everyone congregates in a bar afterwards, and doesn't matter what level you're at, everyone's just there because they like whiskey and they like a pint, and it's just that collective love of what everyone's doing. And I think that's one thing that really got me as well. It's the sheer passion of everyone. I've never known a world or an industry to have the passion that whiskey does, and it's so infectious. and it never ceases to make me smile.
Agreed.
We a lot of people, and we'll talk about this as we go through some of the ways to get deeper into Irish whiskey, but we see so many virtual connections through Facebook that have turned into, or Instagram, or via virtual events that we've hosted, turn into in-person meetups and in-person connections and subgroups, which is great to see people meeting in their areas and people saying, if you're, like you said earlier, I visit a certain part of the world, I reach out to a club member and they say, come on over. That happens more often than we know.
Yeah.
And that's a nice thing. There's a nice little, we all want to belong. We're fairly basic creatures at the end of the day.
Indeed.
Yeah, the friendships that have come off with it, like offshoots within a whiskey community, is lovely as well. And Rick, to kind of give, if anyone's joining who is maybe at the beginning of their whiskey journey, I know we've got a lot of people here who are seasoned community members. But if someone was beginning, what advice would you give them in how to maybe expand their knowledge or get more involved in a whiskey community?
I'm probably going to get a sticker taken away now.
No, I was going to give him one.
I might get thrown right out of here. Truthfully, I don't, like, volume wise, I don't drink very much.
Get out.
Yeah.
I certainly enjoy what I enjoy and I like what I like. I buy things that I'm going to open and drink. I have bought a few things that I probably won't open. But ask me again. Ask me the question again.
The question is, what advice would you have for somebody?
Yeah. Thank you. Because I was going off on a road I know wasn't your answer.
I kind of got where you were going there.
He's too busy staring at the whiskey bottles in front of him.
It's like a carrot dangling.
Yeah. The advice would be to participate and be willing to sort of step beyond your comfort zone. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to even like everything. You don't, I don't want to say lower your expectations, but probably open your mind to just be open to what's out there, be open to engaging. And again, that's the same with every community, right?
Yeah.
It's great
David
advice.
says,
Said the same as well. Like, always try something new, even if you don't like it. And I guess a lot of people, if they didn't just start to try something new or didn't try whiskey in the first place, however they tasted it, they wouldn't be where they are today. So it's a great answer, great advice.
And come back to something again. If you don't like it the first time, it's not game over. And it might taste better a week later, a month later, 10 years later. Who knows?
And that's another thing that that I can remember not knowing from the very beginning is, if you open, let's say, something like a Pepsi Max, it's going to taste like a Pepsi Max.
Have you got some?
until it's old and flat. But whiskey can be enjoyed like a whole bunch of different ways, and in many ways, at least for me, it got better.
You don't need to put down Pepsi Max to big up whiskey.
I'm not picking on.
Okay.
I'm not picking on Pepsi directly.
Actually surprised there's not a bottle sitting between you there somewhere.
There's probably one within reach.
There's one in almost every room, just in case we can't get to the door.
True fact. That is a true fact.
Nothing here at the moment. I forgot to bring it up. Is the honest answer.
It's always there.
So Rick, how are you going to continue your whiskey journey? Like, what is of interest to you now? Like, you're somewhere on this spectrum. We're all somewhere on a spectrum of from no knowledge to expert. None of us are experts. We'll ever be, probably. But where do you go next, or what excites you about wanting to explore or discover?
I bounce back and forth between, like, I want to know more about the places I've been, so I can know more about the pours, the things that the products they have, the brands they have. And then sometimes it's the reverse of that. Sometimes I'll see something on the shelf, or I'll see something somewhere and I'm like, I bet I could go there. I bet I could, learn more, whatever. And again, just to repeat myself the 50th time, it's just about doing something, just participate, doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm going to keep doing is keep exploring what I like, what I don't like, where I want to go, where I don't want to go. And at least recently, a lot of that has come from other members, like who've
Yes.
gone more places than me, or have talked to more people than me, or have experienced more stuff than me. I hear something that they say that's interesting, and truthfully, I just try to make it happen. I tried to
Yeah.
go there or meet
Yeah,
that
yeah.
person or learn that thing.
Yeah.
So it's really just about engaging, I guess.
And you're not going to run out of things to explore.
Oh my gosh,
No.
it's almost overwhelming.
It
at
is,
times,
yeah.
but
If anything, it does get
Yeah.
whelming / overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt.
I've
That's
been
it.
whelmed.
You've been whelmed.
Yes.
There is a level of whelm exists.
Not
Yeah.
over, not under, just whelmed.
Just whelmed.
That's a great point, actually, Rick. Is I think so many people are scared to ask questions, but for want of not wanting to know something or not appear as knowledgeable as others might think they are. But that's how I learned, was by asking other people something I didn't know. It was way better than Google or a search engine. The people who had lived and breathed the industry for much longer than I had were how I learned most of what I now know. So I think if there is something that you don't know, or a question that you want to ask, not necessarily directly to a brand or a master, just in a community, it's never a bad thing.
That's right. That's right. Martin has a great point there. He goes, I definitely stopped doing shots after joining this group. I even asked for a 2 glass at restaurants now. Good man, Martin. That's the way to do it. Is we as we learn more, we know what we like more, and then we realize, okay, there's different ways to explore things. And I've learned lots from the whiskey community about how to enjoy my whiskey, and somebody will give you a nugget of every conversation. Everyone who makes a whiskey has a nugget to offer. That every conversation you'll take something away.
Exactly. And also, there's nothing wrong if you do want to shot whiskey. There's a time and a place for everything. If you want to pickleback in the bar at 2 a.m., that's also fine. No, this is a judgment-free zone, as
Just
we
don't
all
call
well
us.
know.
Yeah.
Just don't call us.
I'm feeling a difference in it can't be age, it must be something else. I'm feeling a difference in opinion there.
No, I think you would agree, Barry, to be fair, that you can enjoy whiskey however you want. You preach
Absolutely.
that
Oh
too.
no, yeah.
Any way you want. Any way you
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I was-
Yeah. And it's the shots of whiskey that's fueling the growth of Irish whiskey, let's be honest.
Well,
It's
This is it, yeah, exactly. It's the Jameson, it's the proper 12 of the world, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. That's how it's moving.
and there's very few people sitting down exploring the bouquet or the finish of a proper number 12 or a Jameson, let's be honest. Not at 3 o'clock in the morning anyway. Can we remark upon the wonderful whiskey legs on this proper number 12 for a moment? Not happening. Not
Look at the
happening.
legs in the shot glass. This is great.
The trickling down the red solo cup is a wonderful texture to this whiskey.
Oh dear.
Well, Rick, thanks for sharing your journey with us. Your journey continues, and we hope to have you on the to be on the journey with you, and to keep enjoying whiskey with you and Amy and Dave and everyone that you've managed to introduce to whiskey as well, which is great. It's been a family affair,
And it has.
which is fantastic, and we're all the richer for your company. So thank you for that, and I would say sláinte.
Yes,
Enjoy
Sláinte,
the
Rick,
drop of
thank
Middleton.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure.
It's always great to hear directly from someone who's been on a journey. So it was great to have you on.
That's it. That is it.
I'm only here for the stickers.
You're only here for the stickers. Well, look, we'll give you one more sticker as you go. You deserve a third one.
You know,
We can get it off
You can
here.
read Barry's shelves.
dropping hints.
Now, stories and sips. He's laden. He'd be walking on one side now with the weight of the stickers.
You can go and read Barry's shelves.
You can. You're free to read the shelves.
But he's otherwise preoccupied.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
All right, Rick, we're going to let you go,
Yep.
and then we're going to continue on. We've got a whole load of things to share with you. So I'm going to put Lauren up on the screen there, full screen, and she's going to introduce. Let me see. All right, Lauren, you're on stage there for one moment.
No problem. Allow Rick to exit swiftly. So this takes me back to the halfway to St. Patrick's Day event when I was genuinely on my own hosting the whole shebeen. So yes, we're giving Rick a few minutes to exit the room swiftly, delicately, to read Barry's shelves. So myself and Barry, the reason we're mainly here tonight, folks, of course, is to show you, educate you as to how to progress on your whiskey journey, regardless of what stage you're at. So if you are beginning, if you're in the middle somewhere of your whiskey journey, or you maybe feel like you're at a point that you don't really know how to progress and you want to progress and you want to get more knowledge and you want to meet more people, we are here to gently point you in several directions in which you could do that. Isn't that right, Barry? I think you're back.
That is right, indeed.
I am here.
Just like that. Yeah, we are. So we want to we want to expand our whiskey knowledge ourselves, and we want to share with you how we expand our whiskey knowledge, and we're learning every day. I think you are too, and I wouldn't want to be part of an industry or a category or a community where knowledge isn't sought or of interest, and that there isn't a general desire to just do more, enjoy more in a wholesome pursuit of fun, knowledge, education. That to me is just a wonderfully rounded way to spend my days. And we've met the nicest people on this journey, haven't we?
Exactly, and we're very lucky that we get to call this our career, and this is the journey that we've decided to pursue. It's has to be one of the most rewarding industries for so many reasons that we've already mentioned tonight. The people, the pours, the places, just the general family feel of the industry that you work in. Not many people get to say that they love their job, so we're very lucky.
So we're going to share with you some channels of information, some approaches, some things to research that we think will be helpful to you. And as we go through these, you'll probably share back with us as many things that you've discovered along the way. Or if we say, go explore whiskey festivals, you might say, well, you got to be in Chicago in October. You got to be in New York in December. Here's why. You got to be in Dublin in May for Whiskey Life. And so let us know what has worked for you along the way. But we'll kind of touch on things that, as we were going through this and preparing the information for tonight, I think we came to the conclusion that all we were listing was the ways we ourselves learned what we know today. And it's not that we have all the answers or that we know more than you. It's just that we know things because of the things that we have pursued and sought out. And maybe they'll be helpful to you, and maybe you'll teach us some things along the way here tonight as well, of things we should be considering.
Definitely. I was just about to say, I feel like I've learned so much from the community and Irish Whiskey Fans of America to certain festivals and really cool pubs and bars and things in the US that I didn't know about before. So we learn from you too, I think is the lovely thing about all of this. And I love hearing, like, I know a few people have already shared. Bob Hurley, I know, shared his story as to how he stopped drinking Jack Daniels. I love hearing stories like that because it just brings it right back down to such a lovely earth level of how we all started our whiskey journey. So please do share them as we're talking through all of our points tonight. Share your journey. I want to hear. I don't care if Barry doesn't. He probably does, but I want to hear.
I do want to hear, of course. And we're also very lucky to be working with people like Lauren, who has spent all of her career in the whiskey industry and has most of her career in the whiskey industry, and has garnered an insane amount of knowledge directly from the people who make the whiskey and from sharing her knowledge with people both at the distillery and around the island of Ireland and further afield over the years. So she lends a great perspective to us as well and helps us learn along the way as well. So we're lucky to have Lauren on board for our journey as well. So we'll share some slides with you in no particular order. They're just for discussion and talking points. It's not like one's more important than the other. It goes without saying that if you do want to get deeper into the world of whiskey, you want to surround yourself with all of the channels that give you information that you might find interesting things about. And there are a number of whiskey podcasts. So if you are on long drives, long commutes, if you like to have your earphones in when you do things, as I do, I think I probably listen to 20 to maybe 25 hours of podcasts a week, because my head needs noise. It needs things in it. So when I'm cleaning or walking, I like to listen to things. And whiskey podcasts, there's some great ones out there. I'm sure many of you will have suggestions and recommendations. But whiskey podcasts for me that go beyond the world of Irish whiskey, even that are not just about Irish whiskey, but they're about the world of whiskey that can in turn teach us about whiskey themselves or about Irish whiskey itself through some great interviews and things like that. So, for example, like here's a few examples of podcasts. So, Whiskey Cast is the most famous. Mark Gillespie, he's done 1,000 episodes of Whiskey Cast over the years, and a tremendous resource of knowledge. And you go back into old episodes and you listen to amazing interviews of people who've retired from the world of whiskey, and he covers all whiskey: Scotch, Japanese, Canadian, Irish, Taiwanese, you name it, Australian, and he's got a great following and deserves a listen. And I think I might have spelled whiskey wrong there. It should be Whiskey Cast without the E. But I think we know the one. Whiskey Chats is another great one. Lauren, you're familiar with that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Our good friend Laurie O'Dwyer, who is also, of course, the founder of Cork Whiskey Fest. So Laurie hosts great podcasts. And something I really like about Laurie as well is that he hosts his podcast with quite a range of people. So it can range from masters, it can be an ambassador, it can be someone who is just a whiskey drinker that's very well known within the community. So we talked earlier about different perspectives. And it's really nice to hear different perspectives on his podcast from people who have entered the whiskey world on a different path. It keeps it fresh, it keeps it new, and you're not just hearing from kind of the same caliber of person all the time. So yeah.
Well worth a listen.
Very much so.
More, maybe 150 episodes, maybe Whiskey Chats out there.
Yeah.
Back in 2017, 2018, I did a series of podcasts, Stories and Sips podcasts. In fact, Stories and Sips started as a podcast / YouTube channel way back. And I've often found myself going back to listen to the interviews that I did over 2 years with founders who've gone on to achieve, in many cases, the vision that they set out early on, or who have maybe are no longer in the industry, or who have gone on to bigger things in the industry. So there's a whole pile of interviews available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you want to listen to Stories and Sips, I recommend you go and do that. They're all free of charge on there. And then a little bit biased, but the Waterford Whiskey podcast is one that I produced and hosted. And the reason I put it up here is because of what I learned and the amount of knowledge I gleaned from producing that podcast about the world of the historical production of whiskey, the historical approach to farming, the approach to terroir and a sense of place. And what I learned from listening to farmers and winemakers and distillers and blenders and tasters and consumers, I think changed my perception of whiskey. And I can't overstate that. It's on the Waterford Whiskey website. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify. Google Play has it. Go check it out if you have time. Waterford Whiskey Podcast. We did 2 seasons of it, and a fascinating deep dive, unbiased approach, just understanding a distillery's own approach to whiskey and their particular approach. And it's Ireland's first ever distillery whiskey podcast. No other distillery in Ireland ever produced a whiskey podcast about the distillery. So that would be our first recommendation, is dive into the world of podcasts. Anybody got any other recommendations on podcasts? Let us know in the comments. Any others you listen to?
No, they would be the main ones I'd be familiar with as well. I remember Barry saying that the podcast you hosted with Waterford kind of completely turned your opinion of terroir and the kind of theories that Waterford holds so close to their heart. So
it did, and it, interestingly enough, when I was asked to host the podcast, they had a thought in their heads of what they wanted it to be about, and I had a thought as I started hearing their vision for what they wanted to produce. I asked them if they'd be willing to just let it be a very curiosity-led podcast, as opposed to trying to convince people about their approach. Rather, could we just interview people and let the listeners decide whether it's for them or not, and let's be a very balanced approach. And they were so kind that they didn't require a preview of any episode before it went live. So the first time our listeners listened to the podcast was the same time the Waterford Distillery listened to the podcast, which was nerve-wracking enough for me, because I'd published it and wondered, was I going to get a call from the distillery saying, I can't believe you let that go out on air.
What is this?
Yeah, but it all worked out.
That's also a benefit that we haven't mentioned, actually, is that your beliefs that you've maybe held for quite a few years about whiskey can be challenged by certain podcasts and certain people you talk to, which is no bad thing at all. I think having something that sparks a debate and conversation is always a good thing. We've even noticed on the Shebeen, the nights that we host something that's maybe a little bit divisive are the nights that everyone tunes in and throws their 2 cents into the chat, which we love. I love debates.
That's right.
They don't have to be negative. They don't have to be putting anything down. It's just an open and honest conversation about something is never a bad thing.
A few comments there and other recommendations. Poor Decisions podcast is worth listening to, as is Whiskey and Whiskey with Brian Hennessy. So there's a couple of other options for you as well.
Yeah.
All right. It's a comment there. Let me hide that. All right. Lauren, do you want to have a talk about this one?
Yeah. So whiskey festivals, I think this is a great one for you if you're a little bit earlier, perhaps on your whiskey journey. And then as you develop your journey, you see it as more of a social gathering and something there's fun to be had at, which is no problem. But whiskey festivals, certainly in Ireland, and I know they're hugely popular all across the US as well, but it's not that expensive to attend a session. And within that kind of, I know in Ireland anyway, it's usually about a 4-hour session for an expo or Whiskey Live in Dublin, for example. You pay, I think it's like 40, 50 euro. And within that 4 hours, you can taste so many samples, which obviously also has negative impacts as well, but we'll not focus on that tonight. But you can taste so many things. You can meet so many people, brand ambassadors, blenders, distillers, marketers, sales representatives, such a wide range of people that you can learn from and pose your questions directly to them. And it's such a good way if you're maybe not sure what style of whiskey that you like yet, or you don't know what cask finish you prefer. It's such a good way to just dabble in a little bit of everything. And I think that they are obviously growing, certainly in popularity in Ireland for many years. We only had Whiskey Live in Dublin, and now we have Southeast Whiskey Festival down in Wexford. We have Cork Whiskey Festival. It's fantastic to see, and I don't think they can be underestimated in terms of how useful they can be.
There are challenges to getting to some whiskey festivals. I know depending on where you live, you might not have one near you, but many people make them part of a trip, and they'll include them with a bundle them into a holiday vacation, tag it on to the end of something. What I found very helpful with whiskey festivals is that if I taste something there, I'm able to ask the maker, why does it taste this way? How and why? And that's a really valuable way to learn, and you're just compounding this knowledge over time. Now, the whiskey festivals, like Lauren said, it can be a challenge, maybe pacing yourself with 40, 50, 60, 70 stands there. You don't want to go mad on it. And I've always found it helpful to make a plan beforehand of who I want to talk to and what I want to taste. I've gone so far as to bring sample bottles to whiskey festivals and bring home samples and not taste them there, because there's a limit to your sanity and your capabilities after so many stands. But it is also a great way to build relationships and meet people who you'll see further down the road at a distillery or at a tasting event as well. So and I would also add here that it doesn't have to be an Irish whiskey festival that you attend. There are lots of whiskey festivals I know in cities like Las Vegas, Chicago, New York, that are bigger festivals that would have a small Irish representation, might be mostly American whiskey focused or Scotch whiskey focused. There's a lot to learn too, though, that will translate into your appreciation for Irish whiskey as well.
Exactly. And another benefit to the whiskey festivals is more often than not, they also have masterclasses that brands will put on within the festival as well. So you might be able to join, let's say, a deconstruction of Redbreast 12 year, and you can dive deeper into maybe one of your favorite pours, learn a little bit more from the representative there as well. So there's loads of benefits to them. They're great crack as well. Let's not underestimate the fact that they're a lot of fun, especially when it's not often you get a lot of the whiskey industry together in one room, and when it happens, it's great fun. And we're all about the crack here as well.
Lauren, you yourself were a brand ambassador, and you hosted tasting events, you trained bartenders and teams, you educated consumers. What's the benefit of somebody seeking out events that are led by brand ambassadors? And what is a brand ambassador?
So ultimately, a brand ambassador's sole responsibility is to educate the masses on the brand that they represent. That's the core of everything that they do, and they want to spread knowledge and awareness of their brand in interesting ways. Things that are maybe you tasting whiskey outside of the box, or a certain whiskey masterclass. It's just a little bit different to just going into a bar and tasting a whiskey. So the benefit to really finding who your local ambassadors are is that you can follow them on social media and you can keep up as to where they're doing tasting. So if they're in your city, your town, your local pub for an event, you can join and you can learn a little bit more about that brand. And more often than not, there's always a little bit of friendly competition within ambassadors as well. So everyone's always trying to think of something a little bit more cool than the next person to do. So you'll often find that events with ambassadors are a little bit fun, a little bit more informal, as opposed to maybe a masterclass with a distiller or a blender. The fun element is certainly at the core of an ambassador's role as well. So you might find that they're hosting a really cool food pairing. They might pair up with a local artist or a local wood carver, for example, and host a series of events across a region in Ireland or in a certain state or city in the US. So find your ambassadors, find who they are, find where they tend to hang out, and you can follow them and go to a tasting.
And they won't all be in your area permanently. And
No.
certainly in the United States, brand ambassadors have to cover a lot of ground. Some of them will have 10 states under their remit, which means you're going to see them infrequently, but you might get a lot from, as Lauren said, following them online and then keeping an eye on when they will be in your area or where they're going, that you might want to go and see them as well. And they often, as you probably did as well, can bring samples that might not be available to the general public to try and give an insight into the work of the distillery, that the general public doesn't get access to some samples. And we've all benefited from the kind of the under the counter pours that come with the brand ambassador tastings over the years.
Exactly. They'll always bring something, as you say, Barry, that's not necessarily a core range whiskey. Often brand ambassadors are in a position to give you a little kind of sneak preview of maybe something that will be released in a couple of months' time, or something similar to what will be released in a couple of months' time, maybe a component of it or something along the lines of that component of a whiskey. So they're usually very fun people who ultimately just want to help you learn about their brand. So they're good people to keep in touch with.
Joining a whiskey club, then, as you start to progress through the rungs of the ladder, joining a whiskey club can be the next step, and in expanding that knowledge. There are amazing clubs in Ireland, physical clubs and societies all across the island of Ireland. There are similar ones in different parts of the United States where you're from. There might be some in your city. There might be some that are more virtual and online. But joining a whiskey club can introduce you to pours of whiskey that before you ever have to commit to buying a bottle, you might be able to get a sample. It'll allow you to hear more behind the scenes. In a little bit of a biased way, I run a whiskey club, Stories and Sips, a virtual whiskey club predominantly. We do have some occasional in-person events, but speaking as a whiskey club owner, like, I started the whiskey club because I was hearing from more and more people that they wanted more access to the people who make the whiskey. They wanted to try different whiskeys. They wanted to meet other people in the world of whiskey and hang out with them virtually or online or in person. And so that was the reason we started Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. But it's not the only one. There's many others out there. There's Scotch whiskey clubs. I'm a member of many different whiskey clubs. I'm a member of the Irish Whiskey Society in Ireland. I'm a member of the Cork Whiskey Society. I'm a member of the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. I'm a member of my own Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. And I've just found whiskey clubs a great way to, again, get more nuggets of knowledge, get more samples, and get access to experts who know far more about things than I do.
Yeah, and I think this is mostly when we mention community, this is what we mean. I feel like a whiskey club, a society, is the one place that you will be able to make friends with like-minded people, people who are whiskey drinkers. They enjoy not just the whiskey, but as we've also said, the people behind it, the stories, the history of a certain brand or a certain pour. This is where that real belonging comes in, is if you are part of a whiskey club. And it's fantastic to see, certainly in Ireland, whiskey clubs that are starting to appear all across the island, which just leans into the ever-growing interest and the thirst for knowledge that we have surrounding Irish whiskey, which is fantastic. So this would be my probably top recommendation.
See, Google whiskey clubs, Irish whiskey clubs, Scotch whiskey clubs, whiskey clubs generally, and see what you find. There are programs out there online and in person, and there may be some connected with your local bar. Some bars will have their own whiskey club, and they'll assemble people and gather people on a monthly or every quarter to taste whiskeys. And so it's a low cost way to try more expensive things and gain more knowledge.
Exactly. And you might even discover through a whiskey club tasting that there's a brand that you maybe thought, don't really know too much about this brand. You've maybe kind of sort of subconsciously avoided a certain brand for whatever reason. As you said, Barry, it's a great way to taste whiskey from a brand that you don't have to pay for a full bottle of. You can dip your toe into it before you commit.
Lauren, I'm going to let you take this one for a second. I'm going to pop off the screen for a minute. I'll be back in 2 seconds. I'll let you take this one.
No problem. So Facebook groups, this is how I met all of you lovely people that are in the comments, was through, of course, Barry's Facebook group, Irish Whiskey Fans of America. It is, as we all know, I'm preaching to the choir here, we all know that Facebook groups are a fantastic way to just ask questions so casually. There's often hundreds, and in our case, thousands of people waiting to give you an answer to something. And it can be something so simple as, hey, does anyone know where I could pick up a bottle of Gold Spot? Haven't seen it in a while. Does anyone's liquor store still have bottles in stock? It could be, you could be wanting to go to Ireland. You could maybe be wanting to find the best whiskey distillery to bottle your own whiskey, for example. They are just fantastic, and I feel like it's a very friendly, very informal way to gather knowledge. And I know so many people here, that was your gateway into buying lots more whiskey and meeting loads of people and learning loads more. So I've done you well. I've done you justice there, Barry. Don't worry. I haven't said anything against Facebook.
Obviously, not just our own Facebook group.
No,
there's many Facebook
not.
groups out there. Obviously, Irish Whiskey Fans of America is one, but there's others. Like just Google or just search Facebook for Irish Whiskey and find other groups.
Yeah,
lots of them out there, and all will have a slightly different approach and what they want to achieve with their group. We have one approach, others have another one, but Facebook has worked really well for us over the years. Really, really well.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, it's a great way to. It's also a lovely place not just to ask questions, but to share your thoughts, your opinions, your knowledge. I think it was maybe Martin or someone said earlier, forgive me if it wasn't Martin, about how, if a new whiskey is released and you're not sure whether to buy it or not, you go to the Facebook group and someone's posted a review of it, and it's great. You know whether it's worth spending your money, or you think, oh no, I'll miss that one.
That's right. And their groups and forums are great places to lurk until you feel confident enough to ask a question or participate. We have many lurkers, and that's okay. It's okay to lurk. Outside of Facebook groups, there are forums that I find quite helpful, like Reddit. So some of you might be users of Reddit. These are like online message boards. There are subreddits, which are little communities and categories where people gather around the most niche of topics. Irish Whiskey has its own subreddit, which allows you to go in and create a little account, and not too dissimilar to a Facebook group. You can ask questions about Irish Whiskey. You can post your reviews, and a great place to just go back and look through questions people have asked and the answers that people have given. And what you'll start to find over time is you'll start to discover what's right and what's wrong from what people are saying. In other words, if people have the right advice or the wrong advice, you'll learn the more you start to soak in what's out there. But there's only one way to get to that point, and that's to start by soaking it in, start by lurking and soak in what you can find. I like there's a good Reddit, and I've lurked on Reddit. I've never posted a single thing on it. Have you?
No, never, never. But it is a great place, not necessarily just for whiskey, but if you've got questions about anything, 9 times out of 10, it's already answered in great detail on Reddit. It is very beneficial. But that also brings up a great point, Barry. You mentioned there about misinformation. So that is something you kind of have to look out for. And as you say, the more you start to gain knowledge, the more you will know when people are just regurgitating something that they've read 10 years ago that is
I
just
know.
not true. But that's also the benefit of having so many communities, is someone can gently be corrected.
That's right. That's right. The Doug of the North said, while enjoying a craft beer at a holiday party, I was introduced to members of my office whiskey club. I went from never wanting a straight whiskey to being a highly active member and lover of it. Sometimes all it takes is that first free whiskey, and the first one is always free. That's the trick, isn't it? And then you're
Yes,
hooked.
my first whiskey was also free as well, so it does work. Yep, proven fact.
I've developed a couple of whiskey clubs for companies that wanted to provide a whiskey club for their clients, and we have created like something like a smaller version of Stories and Sips, but for a very specific audience. It might be just 20 clients over the course of a year would receive tasting kits and whiskey glasses and educational. And it has, again, it's another way, like Doug was saying, like to have an office or a company whiskey club to introduce people to whiskey one at a time or one event at a time. It's a low impact way to get more people into the world of Irish whiskey. So if anybody wants to start a whiskey club for their company, give me a shout. Give me a shout.
You know where to come.
All right. We talked about Irish whiskey fans of America. Okay. We'll talk about we'll jump past Join Stories and Sips. Plug. Well, look, while we're on this point here, while we're on this very self-serving point, I say self-serving, I think it's a mutually serving point that we talk about Stories and Sips. Look, it's a whiskey club for fans of Irish whiskey who want to go deeper into the world of Irish whiskey. I want to talk about 3 things that are coming up, just really briefly here. So on the topic of deepening our knowledge of Irish whiskey, Greg mentioned it earlier. One of the great ways I have developed my knowledge of Irish whiskey is over the past 2 years through our monthly event we host with Stories and Sips called our Meet the Maker event. And we have a Meet the Maker event coming up on the 22nd of February with Brian Nation, master distiller, ex-master distiller of Middleton Distillery, now master distiller of O'Shaughnessy Distilling, and Ger Garland, global brand ambassador for Keeper's Heart Whiskey from O'Shaughnessy Distilling. We've got that coming up on February 22nd. On February 20th, we've got a Redbreast tasting with the master blender from Middleton Distillery, Dave McCabe. On March 11th, we've got a tasting event with the head distiller of the micro distillery in Middleton Distillery, the Method of Madness Distillery, Barrett Stapleton, who's going to lead us on a journey through 3 expressions of Method of Madness, which we will ship to your door. Those are 3 big events that are coming up just in the next 3.5 weeks. And that's why I want to push Stories and Sips, because I think currently it's the only club that is dedicated to Irish whiskey that is bringing together live virtual events with the people behind the whiskey, as well as tasting events where whiskey is shipped to you as in a club format. So we've got all of these various events they're all come together under the banner of Stories and Sips. Anyway, join Stories and Sips if you want more Irish whiskey and knowledge in your life, and we'll welcome you with open arms. And there's no commitment to stay longer than a day if you don't want to. And if you join in your first month and you don't like it, I'll give you your money back, because we don't want you to be out a penny. All right.
That was the relatively humble. We'll allow you that.
Thanks, Lauren. You're as good. You're as good.
No, in all seriousness, though, I think we know that the access that you've allowed people to get to, those that would otherwise not be available. So credit to where it's due, Barry. Fair play to you.
It goes against everything that is Irish to promote a thing that I do.
It does,
because
yeah.
it feels wrong. Like I feel dirty. I'll have to have a shower after this to promote a thing. But when I know that there's some value in it,
Yeah.
I feel obliged to at least say,
You feel
look,
a bit better. Yeah,
I think it's worth something.
When you know it's worth something to someone else, we can get over the Irish guilt of self-promotion.
Right. And before we move on from that, Bob Hurley just said he just used the new Stories and Sips discount code at Irish Malt. So that's great. And he got himself a discount. Good
Very
stuff.
good.
All right. Okay. Seek Out Whiskey Festivals. Did we talk about this one already?
Yeah, we did. At the very start, yeah.
Is it a duplicate?
You must be going backwards, are you? You're going in reverse?
Story of my life.
There we are. Oh, barely even had a whiskey.
So take online courses. Now, when it comes to Irish whiskey, there aren't a lot of online courses.
No.
There aren't yet. We're going to try and do something in Stories and Sips with maybe more of an educational track to it in time. But there's one that was put together by Fionnán O'Connor and Matt Healy, the Edinburgh Whiskey Academy, which if you want a fairly, I would say, not somewhere between entry level and expert level, kind of a medium level of kind of intermediate level of knowledge on Irish whiskey. It does go into detail, Edinburgh Whiskey Academy, and it almost pains me to point to Scotland to teach us about Irish whiskey, but we have to, because that's where it comes from. But they have a course. I think it's about $100 maybe to take the course, and I learned things from it. I thought it was very helpful. But there are other online courses you can take in Scotch whiskey, in American whiskey, in Canadian whiskey, which will tell you about the same scientific process that's used in the production of Irish whiskey. So I think it's worth seeking out what you might find online in terms of courses. And if any of you have taken any online courses for Irish whiskey, let us know as well. These are, of course, courses that are below the level of college courses or those that are accredited courses for the likes of a brewer's diploma or degree or a distiller's degree or Heriot Watt University in outside Edinburgh, which would obviously be fully accredited. Walk into a distillery with a Heriot Watt degree in your hand and you're good to go.
Yeah. There's another one as well, which is available all across Europe. I think it's actually a globally recognized qualification all across Europe and across the US as well. It's not directly whiskey, but it's the WSET certificate as well, the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. I did it about a year and a half ago in London, and it was so insightful. I learned so much, even though it's not specifically about whiskey. I think just improving your knowledge of other spirits, like rum, for example, tequila, mezcal, which obviously are often, those casks are often used to age whiskey, so it all links in somehow. Was fascinating, and you can do it online. There's often local sort of schools that can provide the qualification for you as well. There's different levels. You can focus on spirits, you can focus on wines or beer now as well, I believe. It was fantastic. So it's something a little bit different, but it is available worldwide.
And Nick Ryan from Thomond Gate Whiskey, he is he runs training for distilleries and brands, and those who are interested, he runs all the way up to I think level 4 of WSET in Ireland.
Yeah, there you are. I'm also an educator, just to throw that in there.
What your level 2 is it? Level 2 educator? It's reflected in your inflated salary.
I was planning to do level 3, and then my career took me in a different direction.
You could still do it.
Could still do it, absolutely, yeah. Just don't really have as much of a need for it anymore.
We might even help you with it.
Sure, we'll see.
Sure, doesn't she learn enough hanging around with me and Anthony?
I learned enough from all the other mentioned sources that we talked about tonight.
That's right. What else have we got? Okay, read whiskey books. This is where a lot of people start, and when in the world of online, where we can tend to look at LED screens more than anything else, we forget that there's a world out there where no advertising will hit us, and we won't be cookied and tracked and traced. And all we have to do is open the covers of a good book. And there's some great whiskey books out there that will change how you understand whiskey, and especially Irish whiskey. I put a couple of them up here. Some of you will have other suggestions. A Glass Apart is the eponymous, or not the eponymous, the famous book by Fionnán O'Connor, the first ever book written about single pot still whiskey, the only book to date, I think, written about pot still whiskey. And it has had a few reproductions, a few reprints, and also The Whiskies of Ireland, which is written by Peter Mulryan. And Peter Mulryan has gone on to found Blackwater Distillery in County Waterford. Those are two great books that will give you a great insight. They were both written about 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, but they're as relevant today as they were back then. And I think there's a market now for maybe some up-to-date books on Irish whiskey. Like the Scotch whiskey industry is inundated and is is saturated with great books that come out on the Scotch whiskey industry. The Irish whiskey industry, we're still not there. We don't have as many. Now many of you will say, okay, you're forgetting this book and that book. And of course, I'm sure there's dozens I've forgotten. Those are just two. But if there's any that you found that you like, let us know.
There was one, and I see a few comments about it as well, that the Dead Rabbit did a number of years ago, From Barley to Blarney, which was more kind of an overview of all the current Irish distilleries.
Yeah.
At the time they visited, which I think was 2017, maybe 2018. So it's kind of an overview of every place they went to. So it's a great book.
Yeah.
If you want to gain a little bit more knowledge about each individual distillery, certainly.
That's right. Yeah. That is good. There's also some, you can find historical Irish whiskey books too, like things like The Lost Distilleries of Ireland is a book written by a guy called Brian Townsend, which goes into great detail. Back in the 1980s, early 1990s, when there was nobody talking about Irish whiskey, this man, a Scot, was going around Ireland documenting the distilleries that used to be there. Great information to have now, which if he hadn't done it, I think all these books just take one dedicated, passionate person to say, I'm so interested in this, let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll see a few more.
Indeed. Lauren, exploring brands' websites and their blogs, why would that give us an insight into developing our whiskey knowledge?
So I think this is a great one, and the reason that I put it in here was a lot of brand websites. So I'm pulling this one out of the air. Method and Madness, for example. If you want to learn a little bit more about the Gariana cask, about their 33-year Mizunara cask, go onto their website. It has a lovely little piece and description of each of their whiskies, and a lot of other websites will do something similar. So if you want a little bit of quick knowledge, where better to go than the actual brand website itself? They're not going to provide you with any false information. So it's a great way for a quick answer, quick response, maybe a breakdown of a certain whiskey, what particular casks it was aged in, maybe how the number of bottles, for example, as well. So I thought that was a great one to include in there if you just wanted a little quick response. And obviously a lot of the brands will have a bit of history, a little bit of the brand story on there as well, albeit a slightly condensed version. It's a great one, I thought, for a quick answer to something if you need it.
I've also found that there's a great spectrum of activity in whiskey websites and brand websites in Ireland, in the sense of there are some brands that put a website up in 1994 and they haven't touched the website since. There are others who use it as their soapbox, and they will create all kinds of content, and they'll do an awful job of sharing it. It'll just be there. You have to go there to find it. It won't have gone out into the world to find you. And so I'll give you two examples of websites I enjoy visiting to get perspectives and new kind of thoughts from the distillery owners or team. Waterford Whiskey. So the Waterford Whiskey website is like an encyclopedia. It is incredible. The amount of money that Waterford Whiskey has put into their website in terms of content, ongoing research, data. You could spend weeks reading it. It's absolutely fascinating. So many great perspectives, and you get a true sense of their ethos and their value system from the website. An hour down the road, another Waterford distillery, Blackwater Distillery. Peter Mulryan has a blog. He's very outspoken, and I don't mean that in the bad way. I mean, he is true to his beliefs, and he puts his thoughts out there, and you can read what he thinks. And I like to know where a whiskey company or a distiller or a maker stands, because it helps me understand if I have an interest in aligning with them or not. And so the more they can tell us, the better. And more brands, I think I'd love to see more brands take the time to use their website as a place of putting a stake in the ground. What do you stand for, and what do you stand against, and help us understand? But it's definitely, these websites and blogs are definitely places to go to learn more and deepen our whiskey knowledge.
Yeah, Waterford's is incredible. Even the fact that all their bottles have the little QR code that takes you straight to the website to give you more information about the whiskey you're drinking. It's just the most incredible use of modern technology. Honestly, it really should be commended very highly, and it is.
Lauren, I'll let you take this one, or start it.
Follow the founders on social media. This is great, especially if a certain brand founder even not necessarily a founder, maybe a blender or a distiller is quite vocal on social media. Now, a lot of them are quite private because they're very busy people, but there's nothing like when you get someone who is really proactive on social media that you can really follow their journey and where you are. First person that comes to my mind when I think about that's actually Louise McGuan. She's brilliant at posting her reels of where she is, her next releases, what she's doing on the farm, who she's hosted. She's maybe hosted a certain state, like I think she hosted the Ohio Liquor community a number of weeks ago. Maybe her wholesalers, for example, in the US as well, distributors, she'll have them over. So if you can follow the founders or follow a blender or a distiller on social media, it's fantastic because they can give you a deeper dive sometimes into what they do. Dahi actually is brilliant as well. He's a brand founder, WD O'Connell. He's very vocal on social media. He comes on a couple of times a week and chats through a certain whiskey or a new release. It can just be a fun way to feel like you're a little bit more connected to the main people of the industry.
I agree, and it suits some people more than others. Some don't want to share things online; they're too busy making things, and that's fine. And but it is interesting to see the business of whiskey, and you do learn things. And like you mentioned, JJ Corrie, I've learned things about sherry casks from watching Louise McGann's videos, and you'll be surprised what you'd learn from, or maybe insight you might get, or advance notice of something you might get from following the teams from the distilleries and from the brands on social media. And they're across all channels. Like some brands are on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything, and they've covered the whole gamut. God bless them. And others just kind of dip their toe.
I remember seeing as well, just another examples come to my mind. Donal McLean, one of the founders of Two Stacks, for our International Irish Coffee Day, he was just in his kitchen making an Irish coffee. So it kind of makes him a little bit more human sometimes as well. Because if you're not in the industry, you maybe haven't met a certain person, you kind of put them on a pedestal or elevate them a little bit, and then you see them whipping up an Irish coffee in their kitchen, and you're like, they're just like us.
That's right. Yeah. And I think we'll see more of that, and certainly marketing agencies worth their salt will be pushing teams in the direction of unpolished, raw footage that's just honest and true to who they are. So that's how another way to gain a little bit of whiskey knowledge is follow the founders. Watching videos, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you find your videos, is Reels, Facebook, Instagram stories, etc. Again, if we're expanding our whiskey knowledge, we're trying to amass a bank of knowledge through various channels. And some creators in the whiskey world will have very specific content delivery methods. Video, for example, is one. Others who are observers and commentators in the world of whiskey will create YouTube videos and TikTok videos where they'll review, they'll pass comment, they'll say why they like a thing, why they don't like a thing. And I've always found it very helpful to subscribe to as many whiskey channels as I can, watch the videos, and you'll start to find who you like to listen to, who suits your energy, who suits your approach, who suits your style. You'll start to align with those that align with your kind of thinking, and you'll learn a lot from that. So don't dismiss YouTube, TikTok, wherever the videos come from. I'd add those as almost as importantly as podcasts. If you really want to expand your whiskey knowledge, so much knowledge available on every aspect of whiskey production on YouTube, for example. There's nothing that you can't find on there to a question you might have in the industry.
Great one for this as well. Is a good friend, certainly to me and to many in the industry, is Jim Ingram. He works in the Friend at Hand in Belfast. His handle on YouTube and on Instagram is Whiskey Novice. He does a lot of reviews of Scotch. There's a lot of Scotch whiskey, but obviously Irish whiskey as well. And he's great. He's very open, very honest, very casual reviews. So he's a great one to give a follow to, certainly if you're a lover of Scotch as well as Irish.
Very good. Goes without saying, find your local whiskey bars. Now, before you shout at us, I'm in North Dakota. I don't have a whiskey bar within 500 miles. Well, look, we apologize, but we can't account for every geography. But we do know that bars that have an interest in whiskey or have dedicated themselves completely to whiskey, where the demographics allow them to do so, are a great place and source of knowledge to expand your own depth of knowledge, thanks to the whiskies you can sample, right?
Exactly. And I there's nothing I love more than going to a whiskey bar and just sitting in a corner. Hopefully there's a fire on somewhere and just picking a few great pours out of their menu. Especially if it's maybe something you haven't had the chance to try yet. It's a nice casual environment that you can just sip, you can educate yourself in the corner, minding your own business. It's just such a it's bliss. It really is. We're very lucky, of course, being in Ireland. We have some of the best bars in the world, whiskey bars in the world, up and down the country, which we make use of very frequently, as some of you may see, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's a great one. Great
Now, you
community.
mightn't have, even if you don't have whiskey bars in your area, if you travel at all, it's as simple as trying to figure out during your travels, are there stops you want to make, rather than going to the chain you might always go to, and the familiar favorites that you have that you'll go to in every city. Is there a chance for you to check out what's local in the city you're traveling to, on vacation or for work, where you might be able to get more whiskey knowledge? Whiskey bars tend to attract people who love whiskey, who work there, who are able to answer lots of questions for you. We see so many examples here in Ireland, Scotland, of course, as well. Countries, and obviously you go to Kentucky, Tennessee, you're going to find more in whiskey regions. You're going to find more whiskey bars. It's that they just go hand in hand, but they're popping up more and more.
Definitely. But I think you also need to be careful as well. And this maybe doesn't apply so much to Ireland, but certainly to the US, is bars that claim to be whiskey bars and they maybe only have like a Jameson or a Blackbush or something on the back bar. And it's kind of a front of general Irishness and being a paddy, if you like. You need to find the proper whiskey pubs like McMullen's in Vegas, for example.
That's right.
That really pride themselves on being a genuine Irish whiskey bar.
And then, kind of finally, here in our list of randomly organized suggestions is you have to get out and meet people, and you have to find people who like whiskey. You have to find like-minded people. You might find them online in communities. You might find them through whiskey societies and clubs and events and festivals. But there's no substitute. You can watch all the videos you want, and you can be members of all the virtual clubs, but there's still no substitute for tasting something with somebody, asking them why they like it, them telling you, and learning their likes and sharing your likes. It just deepens your appreciation for whiskey and the community that's built up around it.
Exactly. I think Rick, this was one of the first points that Rick made when we asked him about how to kind of expand your knowledge, is just talk to people. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, whether it's online, whether it's going up to someone at a whiskey tasting, asking questions at a whiskey tasting. Yeah, just find the people that you gel with and go from there. And it's way more fun being on a whiskey journey with other people as opposed to trying to do it yourself. It's better crack, you learn more, and you feel like you belong a little bit more. So yeah, definitely put yourself out there.
And many of you have become so knowledgeable about Irish whiskey that you've become insufferable to your families, your friends. You go to your local bar and you're telling them how to pour and what a whiskey is, and that's just that's the double-edged sword that is a deep involvement in something like this, isn't it?
When you get the squirty cream on an Irish coffee and you wince when the waiter sets it down on your table and you just have to send it back. That happened to me in New York last year, actually. Squirty cream, and I was like, I don't want to be that person that says something, but you no, please, no squirty cream on an Irish coffee.
I can't think of other ways to deepen your knowledge of Irish whiskey outside of this. These are how we've deepened our knowledge and continue to do so, and continue to meet people and subscribe to channels and watch videos and read books. And I think that's all there is to it. I mean, everything short of getting into production yourself, where it'll require a little bit more education and certification than this. But up until that point, for as long as you're an appreciator like us and an enthusiast, I don't see any other ways to get to deepen your knowledge than just what we've listed here tonight.
Exactly. And as I said earlier, I'm still learning. I think you are. You can certainly say you are as well, Barry. Like the more people you talk to, they'll maybe mention something or put a different spin on something that you maybe have never heard before, and you're just fascinated by it. And we're so lucky to be in a position that we can learn every every week, every month, every time we go on a whiskey bus and we meet a brand founder or a master blender. It's just an ever expanding industry, and it's incredible.
So that's it, folks. We have covered quite a lot on ways to dive into Irish whiskey and deepen your knowledge a bit further. I know you've shared lots with us as well. Continue to share with us in our Facebook group, Irish Whiskey Fans of America, on via Stories and Sips. We've got some great events coming up. If you've just joined us, we were talking earlier about how next week we've got Redbreast tasting with the Middleton blender Dave McCabe. We've got Meet the Maker event with Brian Nation, master distiller at O'Shaughnessy Distilling. And we will be launching next week registration for our upcoming Method and Madness tasting that we've got coming up. And for those of you who've stuck in this long, I'm going to give you a little exclusive tonight. We are going to be collaborating with a distillery very, very soon on a new cask for our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. And you'll be delighted to hear that the distillery we're partnering with to do that next is the newly crowned best pot still whiskey in America distillery, and that's Talnua Distillery in Colorado. And we're going to create a custom mash bill for the pot still. We are going to have a bespoke distillation done for us, and there'll be a lot of Irish involvement. It'll involve Irish grain and American grain to create something very special for our club members. And we'll have a 5-year journey to create a pot still whiskey that'll be bottled in bond, 5 years matured, 50% ABV when it's released. We're going to announce that in the next 10 days, I suspect. But you got a little exclusive there. That's our next club cask that you can participate in, being a club, an owner of a portion of the cask, and get the bottles at the end of it. So more to come on that, but that's very, very exciting. And by the time that whiskey matures, Talnua is in Colorado. By the time that whiskey matures, they will have ways to get the whiskey to you in any state, I suspect. So that's an exciting one. Lauren, what have we got coming up on the World of Irish Whiskey Experiences for those that have just joined?
Yes, so we mentioned at the start that we are literally today, 4 weeks from today, we will be on board already. We've already kicked off our Wild West adventure. So we'll be spending a few nights in Limerick, heading to Galway and up to Westport, and we'll be doing everything from blending, taking part in parades, enjoying incredible food, local Irish seafood, getting to do things that no one has ever done before, which we're trying to keep a secret to as late as possible. So it'll be on the bus. We'll be telling you this, what you're doing exactly. I cannot wait. That is where my full attention is at the minute, just tying up few loose ends, little bits and pieces, just to make sure that all of our guests have an incredible 7 days in Ireland. And then, of course, at the end of the whiskey bus, we're straight into Cork Whiskey Fest, and the majority, over half of the bus, are staying on for the gluttons for crack down to Cork for the festival. So we have a very, very busy March ahead, but we wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm really, really excited.
Folks, thanks for joining tonight and supporting Stories and Sips and the Shebeen and Irish Whiskey Experiences and everything we do. We love deepening our knowledge and interest in Irish whiskey with you all. Thanks to Rick for joining us earlier and sharing his whiskey journey with us. And I'm sure we'll have more folks in the coming weeks and months that'll join us to talk about various things in the world of Irish whiskey too. Thanks to Lauren for her insights and perspective. And we will see you all next week for many of our events and also for another Shebeen next Friday night. Sinead.
Slán to everyone. Thank you for joining as always. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.